right. Um, okay, let's start.
Okay.
All right. Hi, Ryan. Welcome. Uh, my name is Corey. We've been working together for, I guess, since April. Let's say since April, roughly. Like we met through uh, my company, Emsight. I do high-speed data analysis, filming for different sports events. And you're an athlete at Embry-Riddle, and
Yes,
you
sir.
are on the throws team there as well. You have some pretty impressive accolades and working on getting even better. And since we've met, you've also started your own company. Can you talk a little bit about that and
Sure.
introduce yourself as well? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Ryan Flournoy. I am a senior. This is my senior season here at Embry-Riddle. This last season, I finished fourth in D2 and missed out on the Olympic trials by 4 slots. So I came in 28th and they take 24, so barely missed it. But I just recently started my own training company, FloThrow, where we're mobile. We have it's a mobile clinic session where we are going to go out into the community and host these clinics to start developing these techniques among all ages of throwers, whether you're doing football, baseball, javelin, track. It's all about finding it's all about a finesse and a flow. So hence we're working with FloThrow. So it started in Florida, and my last name's also Flournoy. So you kind of got 3 things that
There we go.
kind of
Yeah.
spin off of that. So yeah, but just started it about 2 months ago, and now we're here. I'm excited to get to work.
Sweet. All right. So today, what we're going to do, and we've done a few of these sessions before, but what we do is we look at sport video and using Insight's cameras. It's an event camera, so it can capture very high frame rates, and all you see are the details of the motion and not necessarily the entire scene. And we're going to have you take a look at this athlete and tell us what you think. And, along the way, what kind of this video technology can do for coaches in the review and the feedback process, things like that. Making sure everything's recording. All right.
Perfect. Yep. Cool.
All right. Here we go.
Cool. We got the wide angle, so we have a pretty good overview of the last probably 25, maybe 30% of the throw, which is really good. Obviously, it's the most important part. Sweet.
All right. So that's pretty much the full throw.
Yep. I love what we can capture on this thing. This is awesome.
Yeah. And this is for anyone watching, this is recorded at 1,000 frames per second. And so what I'm going to do now is actually put a timer in this video so that we can make sure we capture time correctly. It's definitely an important part of the process. And let's see.
Yeah, because what took us probably about 25 seconds to watch that is realistically like the last 2.5 seconds, if not 2 seconds of a throw. So
exactly. So pull stopwatch up here.
Cool.
So we can see time ticking by. And drive this back to the beginning.
Sweet. Yeah, as we go through, I'll say stop a couple times, probably 5 or 6 times, and we'll get some key pictures that we can snapshot and kind of go through and dissect.
And if you see something, I'll stop and I'll take a keyframe so we can play it back and look later.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. All right. So yeah, if you're ready, we'll jump right into it.
Yeah. So let me know what you're thinking about this first image that you wanted to take a look at.
So obviously at this point, one of the biggest factors setting up for a successful throw is being relaxed. A lot of times people have a tendency to tighten up their neck, their traps, their shoulders, which leads all the way down into their elbows, their wrists, everything, and they tense up because they want to try and amp the throw right at the end. But this is all a super relaxed position right here. You should be breathing the whole time, and you never want to hold your breath. So right here, looking a little more technical side, you can see his feet are pointing almost at the camera, where if you put like a clock down the center of the runway, if that's 12 o'clock this way, his feet are pretty much at the 3 o'clock position.
Right. Okay.
So you want to try and be around 1:30, 1 o'clock. So he needs to move his toes up more.
I'm just going to animate from this position so we can get so the viewers can get a better sense of what the actual positions are. So yeah, I see that there.
Yep. So you want to try and think like you're running forward versus doing a crossover. You're still doing crossovers per se, but you're going to run a lot faster with your feet forward versus trying to
that driving
over
force,
yourself.
your toes, all the muscles that point forward.
Right.
In that direction, you want to keep them in that direction versus perpendicular to that direction.
Exactly. You also have a tendency to stay on your toes if you bring your feet closer to the 12 o'clock position. If you're sideways, your heel might start hitting the ground, which you don't want.
Right.
So yeah, that was good for the first snapshot. Obviously the javelin was, his hand and his elbow are a little lower than we like. We want to keep the javelin a little more parallel to the ground, especially at this position, because if you start here, you're going to end here. If you start here, you're going to end here. So realistically, you want to keep it as high as you can for as long as you can, obviously without going crazy.
Now, from this video, can you tell if this is a full javelin or is this a?
This is a full javelin. This is an 800 men's gram. Yeah, 800 gram men's javelin. Yeah, I mean it's not a bad throw, but obviously there's going to be a lot we can break down as we're trying. Because even if we can increase a 60-meter throw by 10-15%, that's almost 70 meters right there, which is that's a lot. So yeah, so as we get to the second one, this is as he's entering his drive phase, setting up for penultimate. As you can tell, his body is very far leaned back. Rather than kind of keeping his hips under him with his chest a little more mobilized, he's already sinking back, and that's why the javelin, it starts there, it ends even lower, and his angle of attack is probably about, if I had to guess, probably about 50 degrees once he goes to release. Right now, it doesn't look bad. If you could release from that angle, it's not the end of the world. But you start there, before you even enter the penultimate, your javelin's going to drop probably another 10 degrees. So
yeah, so he's about, so right there from the, let's see, horizon on his shoulder.
Yep.
Yeah, about 36 degrees. We just
that's about right. Yeah.
Oops.
So I guarantee he's going to drop probably another 10 before he releases.
Yeah.
So if he released from that position, he's golden. But that's not the case. It's really hard to maintain that all the way through the penultimate at a full speed, because I'm assuming he was doing a full speed throw this day. So
now the other thing you mentioned was about his trunk angle, his body angle here. So what would be a correction for that? Like what you wanted the hips more under him. So would that mean that he's a little bit more upright posture, or
yeah, definitely a little more upright. Um, yeah, and just more relaxed to keep his arm higher, because as he's putting his weight back, his arm is going to drop as well. So it's all runs parallel to each other. Okay, so as we move to the third picture, again, javelin is continuing to drop. It's not a bad position, but you can tell that the back foot is pretty much at 3 o'clock right now, where you want it to be.
Yeah, we can see his knee in this.
1:30. Right. His foot is probably past 3 o'clock, so it's probably like a 3:15, 3:30.
Now,
I guarantee his heel is also on
yeah.
the ground.
So
You
so this is one of the things about, so like I said, with these event cameras, when something stops moving, we stop seeing it. So just to kind
Right.
of like do some due diligence, kind of stepping back a few frames, we'll start to we can see that foot reemerge as we step back in time a little bit. So even at this point, we want our feet more forward.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. You have a running forward versus a trying to cross over the feet sideways. You're not going to be able to run nearly as fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his entire body is still contorted back, which again, if he raised his arm a little higher, wouldn't be as big of a deal. But because his chest and his shoulder starts dropping, his arm also pivots.
Mhm.
So that comes with a lot of drilling and a lot of core and shoulder flexibility, because it's going to move around a lot. So until you get to that point where you're comfortable, it just takes a while. It just takes a while.
Yeah.
Um,
So we can see from that knee angle still that,
Right.
yeah, it's quite
Yep.
wide and opened up that direction.
yeah. Yeah. So then as we move to the next picture, yeah, I mean, he's not that far off from the position. So as we get into the first block picture, yeah, that fourth picture is a good one. I mean, even the jump between the third and the fourth picture, you can see the javelin angle, which this one actually, it's not that bad. I thought it was going to break. His wrist was going to break a little more, meaning the javelin tip was going to go up, but it didn't break nearly as bad as I thought it was going to. But that's why at this point, it's important to keep your lower abs tight, and allow your hips to rotate underneath you, creating that stretch reaction between your hips and your upper body, which creates that slingshot, that whip that we've been talking about.
Right.
Because your legs are way stronger than your upper body ever will be, and if it's not, then you need to hit some leg days. But probably need to use your legs in a throw.
Right.
Any good thrower who wants to touch 60, 65, you're definitely going to have to use your legs.
Mhm. So like, I guess what you're saying, you're going to keep going down lower as people tend to
Right.
keep going down
Yep.
more.
It's going to slowly taper down.
Yeah.
So you want to protect yourself, because if you know you're going to drop 10 degrees, then start higher. It's all about just training that until you become comfortable with hitting those positions at higher speed.
Right.
So yeah, and then right here, obviously the tip is, and this isn't bad. I've seen much worse. We've analyzed worse throws than this. It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
As you can tell here, his chest is looking good. It's still up. He's not crashing in any fashion, which is that's really helpful. But he's going to use his upper body versus snapping his hips, his right hip through a point, and allowing that stretch reflex from his hips through his abdomen up to his obliques, all the way to the shoulder to create that C position. You have to hold that position longer, whereas he's already opening up and he's not ready to throw yet.
So you're basically talking about getting, for example, this kind of body part, actually, complete that one, kind of moving over, kind of like that, moving over this pivot foot.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, because so when your left leg hits, assuming you're a righty, when your block leg hits, your leg isn't going to be straight when it hits. It's going to be bent. And as you go to rotate around it, that's what's going to straighten that front leg out.
Mhm.
So you don't land with your leg straight, but as you rotate into it, that's going to create that stretch reflex from your hip all the way to the top of your body.
Right.
So it starts by keeping that weight back. So as you rotate, you can kind of build that position while using your legs into it.
Right. And that's what you're talking about before, using the whole
Right.
body, not just the upper body, but getting the
Correct.
legs activated into all that motion to generate more force for the javelin to
Absolutely.
fly through
Yep.
the air.
Yep. Yeah.
And I
it's just,
think in the
again,
previous video you described it as like you're pulling it through
correct.
rather
Yep.
than pushing
Yeah.
it through.
You want to leave the javelin behind you as long as you possibly can. And it's almost like you're handing it to somebody behind you right before you throw. That allows you to then pull from the ground. I say from the ground, from behind you, because you don't want to pull
Right.
from the ground. That means your tip's going to be
Yeah,
up in the
I understand what
clouds.
you're saying. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that imagery is important.
Right. But I mean, this gives us a good angle of, as you progress through this video, he does crash. And in the fifth picture, you'll see his chest is at the ground versus rotating and following through up top.
So rather than jumping, I'm going to actually play it through to the next
Yeah,
segment
perfect.
so we can see it.
Yeah, so he's
And
coming
that
forward,
crash,
he crashes. Yep. Yeah, you
yeah.
can see the crash.
So that definitely was not a rotation over the leg.
Right.
So I was
Right.
trying to show that line. And from the descriptions that you gave me, and I've watched quite a bit of videos in researching for javelin and working with you, and getting over that hip, as you said, that plant leg starts off, it might be a little bent, but as you rotate your body over it, it straightens out. And
Right.
I see they're really tall in that position
Yes.
as they
Right.
come over. And
Exactly.
here, as we notice, this athlete here, everything up until this point isn't too bad, but then at that final point, it's all upper body. It's just like
Right.
a big crunch,
Yep.
rather than like you said, leaving it behind you as long as possible and rotating over.
Right. That's why, even going from the third to the fourth image, it still looks really good. Other than the feet being a little too much to the 3 o'clock position, looks like a really good setup for the throw. It's just you go from 4 to 5, and you can see very quickly how he lost at least 10 meters on his throw right here. The angle
Now,
wasn't even that bad. We'll take 45. It's
yeah,
just the fact that he crashed and lost the whip and then used his arm to make up for the lack of power he was getting from his legs and his hips.
so it's like doing all that work and at the very end, kind of like letting it all go. Like you had all that lead up, that power, that build up, and then not actually transferring it to the javelin and to the throw. It's kind of getting a little lost.
Yeah, it's like going to do a box jump and then right at the end you don't use your arms. So it's all legs. And it just kind of like it completely kills all of your momentum.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I mean you go try and do a box jump without your arms. It is not fun.
now in terms of um now in terms of athletes that you've worked with, how common is it for people to develop the skills in the first three phases of the drive phase, impulse phase, and everything leading up to the release? How easy is it for people to not say master, but be pretty proficient at that stage? And then the end is, I guess my question is a lot of the technical aspect that separate people from getting to the next level around this final release phase?
So it's funny, I was just talking to a friend about this. Javelin, if I had to put it into metrics, I would say it's 65% technical, 35% strength. You can be one of the strongest guys in the world, but the javelin is 1.8 pounds, right? It's not heavy. It's 800 grams. And when you go to throw it, it is all about finesse. You are throwing an 8-foot long PVC pipe, and it's all about putting as much momentum behind it as you can while creating that technique or while using that technique to pull it through the air rather than push it. Because this isn't as simple as a bench press or a squat. You have to use your entire body to give it the thrust behind it at the right angle while opening. You got to use every single muscle in your body to hit this form. So what I'm getting at is it is not easy. You have to start very slow. You need to start with 1 step, with 3 step, very, very slow. You need to do hundreds of them before you even work up to a 5-step. It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of time. And as you begin to master it, it'll become easier. But you want to make sure you're not developing bad habits in the meantime, because
Right.
that's the biggest culprit of where people fall into. And then once you start understanding, you don't know what you don't know. Once you understand what you're doing wrong, then you have to make up all the ground that you were doing things incorrectly with. So we're
Right.
trying to give a baseline of what looks right here. So from this position, like as we said, his front knee is bent, not a lot, but it's bent enough. It's almost like if someone grabs your left hip here and is pulling it back. That's what's going to cause that snap and is therefore going to straighten that front leg, allowing you to contort your body over that block leg.
Mhm.
So it's very hard to grasp. We're going to do some field work. I know you'll be able to get a lot more demonstration, and we'll get a lot of different angles out. It's kind of hard to master
Yeah.
everything right here, but it's all about getting that body to pull the javelin rather than pushing it.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for this review session.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
This was great. Yeah, we'll definitely talk soon, Corey. And once we get some more videos, well, I know.
well, yeah, I'm looking forward to filming out with you guys again and getting updates. So the other piece that I'm working on is whenever I have these videos, I do the review sessions with you, looking at some key metrics and then seeing how they change as the athletes progress. So this athlete here, we have a few data points as to what they were doing at this snapshot in time, and now looking at how they progressed in this current fall season, and again next spring, and building a good profile of their progress.
Gotcha. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's just one step at a time.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you again, and
Cool.
take care.
Thanks, Corey. We'll talk soon.
Great. Bye.
Bye. All right, cool.
Yeah.
That was
That was shorter, right?
Yeah.